So here, what shall we do today? Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello, can you hear me? Is it audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what shall we do today? Today we will start, I think, unit 2, whatever the rest of the other poems of Wordsworth. Okay? Yeah, open Wordsworth's poem Tintanabi. You have Tintanabi, no? Hello?
Yes, sir. We are having, sir.
Hello? Yeah, please open Tintanabi. You read, any one of you read the biography of Wordsworth. Hello? 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 Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello? Yeah, any one of you read Wordsworth's introduction? Introduction to the poet.
Wordsworth was a prolific writer. His poetic career covers a period of more than 60 years. Very few poets can challenge comparison with him. His poetic career may be divided into 4 periods. The early period, the period of bloom, the glorious decade, and the period of decline. Wordsworth was born on 7th April 1770 in Cockermouth, Cumberland in the Lake District. His father was John Wordsworth, who was Sir James Lowther's attorney. He was deeply attracted towards the magnificent landscape, which gave him love of nature. Yes, sir?
Yeah, please carry on.
Nature. His mother died when he was 8, followed by his father's death. 5 years later, he has a neurolithic sister, Dorothy, who was a very important person in his life. He had a separation from his sister due to financial problems. Although many aspects of his boyhood were positive, he sir, the print is not there, sir. Bouts of loneliness and worries. It took him many years and much writing to recover from the death of his parents and a separation from his sibling. In 1795, he met Coleridge. He received a legacy in 1795, and then his financial state became better. He then settled in Draystown, Dorset, with his sister Dorothy. He was initiated by the nature which enabled him to compose the first masterpiece, Lyrical Ballads, in 1798 in collaboration with Coleridge. This work opened with Coleridge's Ancient Mariner. He died in Redall Mount in 1850 and was buried at St. Oswald's Church in Grasmere. His widow, Mary Hutchinson, published his length autobiographical poem to Coleridge as the prelude. Several months after his death, it was completed in 1805, but got published posthumously in 1850. It failed to arouse interest in 1850, but later came to the recognized as a masterpiece. Wordsworth's style in a plain spoken and easy to understand even today. Though the rhythms and idioms of the common English have undergone several changes from those of the early 19th century, Many of his masterpieces, such as Tintanabe and the intimations of immorality, owed deal with the subjects of the childhood and memory of the childhood in the men of adult in particular. The child's lost connection with the nature can be preserved only in memory. Thus, his poems initiated the Romantic era by the marking a stress on feeling, instinct, and a pleasure above formality and mannerism.
Yeah, so here you have seen the biography of Wordsworth, as we all know that he's a prolific writer, multifaceted genius, and he had the influence of French Revolution, Age of Reason, freedom of expression. When you look at all these, the background of the writer shows that he had a lot of whatever his subjective and objective concerns, and the family background shows that the way how he had that contribution of the poetry, and the periods of whatever his contribution shows that early period, and a period of bloom and glorious decade, and the period of decline. So all these you have seen that how he had the influence of his family, as well as his association with college in 1795, and then he had emerged as a poet of pantheism, and the subjects of the childhood, and the memories of childhood from the whatever the background of the family. Then he had tried to explore whatever the romantic age concerns of spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. So when you look at all these, then you can understand how he has that kind of natural whatever is life with the subjective and the objective of his childhood days. So when you look at all these, then you can understand how Wordsworth emerged as a poetic genius and a creativity with this kind of concerns, and then the way how he had that kind of remarkable journey with the nature, and to write the poetry from this kind of pantheism. When you look at his Tintanabe and Intimations of Immortality, and then whatever the other poems also had that kind of touch of his memory of as well as the childhood days of his personal life, which are showing the way to understand how his poetic genius has been emerging, to understand that Tintanabe and Intimations of Immortality, and the way how he had the other autobiographical poems of of his concerns. Then you can understand how Wordsworth had this kind of influence of his family, as well as the nature and association with college. Then we'll come to the introduction to the poem. Is it audible? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Hello?
sir. It is audible, sir.
Yeah,
It is
now
audible,
we'll
sir.
come to the Tintanabe. Yeah. Okay. So see here we have the introduction of the poem. Tintanabe, or the lines from composed a few miles above Tintanabe, appeared in lyrical ballads in 1798. So here 1798 is a landmark in English literature, to know that how lyrical ballads had have that kind of background, to say how this Tintanabe is also coherently with that kind of concerns of the nature intoxicated him. Then his mind was at solace, and looked forward to an eternal peace and happiness. So here he visited the place second time in 1798, but he felt that the former glory is not found in the nature, and nature appeared to have taken a sober coloring. So here his first visit and second visit made him to have that kind of blending experiences of his first and second visit to Tintanabe River. Why? So here Wordsworth had a change in his attitude because of the French Revolution. As I told you that how the Romantic age had the influence of the French Revolution, which is making sense of the liberty, fraternity, and equality, and the revolution was the symbol of peace and prosperity to the suffering humanities. But the cause of the revolution turned out to be something different. So when you look at the way how French Revolution made the Romantic age poets to know what is the humanity and divinity of that God and then having that kind of concerns of the nature, to know what is the influence of the nature, and then how they had that kind of pantheism, and then you can see that he lost his faith in man and even in God. He experienced a spiritual crisis. He began to search for some solace which came to him from nature. So he wanted to find a deeper meaning in nature. So he says that we have to follow nature. We should not go beyond the nature, and then we will have that kind of concerns of consolement in its existential reality of the beauty of the nature. So nature does not mean that only romanticization. It is the representation of God, and here he had that kind of touch of the serenity, peace, and humanity in the nature, to say that God teaches us through nature. So here he was fully aware of the sufferings of humanity. He no longer sought busy raptures and no glad animal moments, but heard the still sad music of humanity. So here, as and when he had realized the role of the nature, as well as concerns of the God, and then he failed to see that the humanity in mankind. So like that, he had the touch of this river Why, and then he wrote the Tinternabi, like this central idea of the poem. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. We are able to
Come
hear
back to central idea of the poem. Wordsworth was a young man, and he enjoyed the beauty of nature to the fullest. His mind was full of African ideas, and he looked forward to an era of peace and humanity. One of the main causes of Wordsworth's changed attitude was the French Revolution. So as we all know that how he had that kind of influence of the French Revolution, which is a representation of the liberty, equality, and fraternity, and the war of liberty turned out to be a war of conquest. He lost total faith in man and even in God, and he began looking out for some solace which nature provides him. So here he says that in the lap of the nature, we can cure anything, whether it is psychological disorder or that could be any kind of thing. So here he had realized that how nature teaches us through that kind of humanity and all like that. Here we'll see, and memories of childhood. The subject of Tindanabi is memory. So here one can write through memory. Without the memory, no one can write anything. So here memory is the central aspect of the Tintanabi. It is specifically the childhood memories of common communion with the nature, natural beauty. The memory of pure communion with nature in childhood works, and the mind even in adulthood is principle, and this is shown in Tintanabi. So here the poet says that in his youth he was thoughtless in his unity with the words and the river. The poem is a monologue imaginatively spoken by a single speaker to him, and he proposed the speaker specific subject objects of imaginary scene, and occasionally of the setting sun. So here you will see that how he had that kind of memories, address others, and occasionally the speaker's sister. The poet is concerned with speaking from the heart in a plain spoken manner. So here we have seen the background of the author and poet, as well as the central theme of the poem, and then the memories of childhood. As we all know that in his poetry, that the subject is related to his childhood memories, and he had that kind of memory of his personal life as well as the beauty of the nature, and then he had realized to write a poem like this. So here he had that kind of a religious sentiment. The poem is also has a subtle strain of religious sentiment. Tintanabi is of a sacred place to the spirit, though the actual form of the abbey does not appear in the poem. The idea of the poem spreads over the scene as as though the forest and fields were themselves the speaker's abbey. So the poet reinforces this point, saying that this belief that the memory of woods has affected him very strongly. So here, when you look at the way how memory has been playing significant role in his literary career and writing the poetry, and then he had looked at that how nature is making sense of that peace and to have that kind of health of his whatever the personal subjective oriented. So here, when you look at the reinforce as this point saying that this belief that the memory of the woods has affected him very strongly. So here it may be vain, but if it is, he has still turned to the memory often in times of fretful stress. So here, when you look at that way, how he had the kind of spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings reflected in tranquility. So here, the collection of memories made him to write the first and second visit has, and when the subject of the childhood and memories of childhood, and then he had tried to recollect all these into that whatever the poetry he wants to write. So like that here, the Tintin Abbey with this background here, we have the summary of the poem. So line 1 to 15 here is with this kind of whatever his concerns. River Wye is a river flowing from central Wales through England into the Savon estuary, 130 miles long. The poet gives a vivid account of his second visit to Wye after 5 years. So here there was a gap of 5 years of first and second visit, and then he had tried to recollect that how the first visit was without any kind of that nostalgia, because here he was in that kind of childhood days, and then he does not have that kind of awareness of that first visit, and then the second visit made him to recollect that first and second visit. So he hears the waters rolling from the mountain springs with a soft murmur. So he has been describing all these whatever the sycamore mountains, the dark nests and the plots and cottage and the river, how it flows, orchards, hedges, and hue and cry of towns and cities. So here, when you look at these 5 years, had been a great disturbance with the hue and cry of towns and cities. So when you look at the way how he had tried to recollect the past of that 5 years, as well as the second visit, then he was with this kind of disturbance of the cities and towns. Like that, the remembrance of nature have provided him solace and comfort. So when you look at the concrete jungle like metropolitan cities, then you can see that to go back to rustic life and go back to that kind of village and beauty of the nature. So here he too had the kind of touch of nature has made him forget all about the fret of the life in the presence of this mood. So here he wants to go away from the reality of this city towns busy life. So he wants to have that kind of whatever the concerns of the nature, to have the peace. So when you look at these feelings has given him immense bliss and produced a great joy to his soul. He started to see the real meaning of things. So here, when you look at the first and second visit, made him to have that kind of concerns of the peace, as well as the way how the nature influenced him to write this poem. So when you look at the second 51 and 266, all these also looking at that the river and the flowing through green fields and valley was always a source of joy to him. So here, when you look at all these, then each and every line shows that he had that kind of closed attachment with the beauty of the nature, and the landscapes made him to have that beautiful impressions. Like that, you can see how he had tried to recollect all these memories of that first and second visit. Now look at the lines 67 to 85. There he tells that when he was a boy, his love of nature was physical. So here, when you look at that how he had recollecting that all these reminiscences about his childhood days. So here, when you look at all these, then you can understand how that memory has been playing vital role to have this kind of explorations of the first and second visit, and the nature, as well as is whatever the attachment with that. Then come to the lines 96 and 104. Then he had that kind of matured, and understanding of whatever the Saros impact are not harsh, but they are those that make the mind pure and sober. So here you look at that how he wants to forego that Saros to have the peace and to have that kind of health in his whatever the concerns of the nature. So that here when you can understand all these, then you can see that how Wordsworth's attachment with the beauty of the nature, and then in the following lines of 104 to 113, nature with its language inspires his thoughts and he is immensely happy. So here he had found that the nature too had the language to inspire the human beings. So when you look at all these, then you can see how he had the touch of the beauty of the nature and the language to have that kind of inspiration and to write the poetry. And then here he addresses his sister Dorothy here, and in 114 and 37 lines, our feelings for nature are the same as his which he had years ago. So look at the way how Wordsworth has been sharing his memories with his children, childhood days, as well as his sister, and then always he feels that nature as his a true friend. And our life is filled with happy moments gifted by nature. It leads us from joy to joy throughout our life. So here, when he was with this kind of family background, and then he wants to see that the beauty of the nature with that kind of joyful faith, and that kind of whatever the concerns of the nature. So here, when you look at all these, then you will come to the 138 and 162, the reminiscences of his revisit to the place as a worshipper of nature. So here, when you look at that mountains, winds may blow gently against her, and Dorothy, in her solitary walk. So here, when you look at that his childhood memories, and sharing with his sister, and he has been trying to say that the way how poet has that kind of whatever the concerns of the nature, and then the reminiscences of his revisit to the place as a worshipper of nature, even after many years of wandering, many years of absence. The woods, mountains, pastoral landscapes were not a matter to be forgotten, instead very dear to the poet and to his sister. So here he has been trying to recollect his first and second visit to establish that kind of identity, the way how all these memories are unforgettable, and they are with his life till the end of his life, they are evergreen to be with him. So here he has been trying to bring on to the notice of the reader that how pantheism and French Revolution influenced him to know how nature is part of our human life. So here, when you look at all these, then you can understand how Wordsworth had this kind of creativity, picturesque scene, and the healing power of nature. And then you can understand how he has been trying to recollect his subject, and with this kind of memories. So when you look at all these, then you can say that does is nature soul, guardian, teacher, and nurse. And he calls nature in Tintin Abbey, thus the anchor of my purest thoughts, the nurse, the guide, the guardian of my heart and soul, of all my moral beings. So here, as we all know that how he had that kind of faith in nature, that God teaches us through nature. So when you look at his picturesqueness and memories are all with this kind of influence of the nature, French Revolution, and then how he had emerged as an nature poet. So when you go through these, then you can understand how is all whatever the concerns of the nature, that to say how Tintin Abbey River Wye made him to remember forever with this kind of whatever the subjective and objective and memories, of all is whatever the family and the nature. So when you look at all these, then you can understand how Wordsworth has been with this kind of nostalgia and reminiscences, and then he wants to show the right way to the human beings that you may have power or any kind of thing, but if you do not have the concerns of the nature or humanity, your life will be a failed subjectivity. So here he says that how this nature is part of our human life, and how it will engage us to look at that beauty of the nature with that kind of peace and humanity, and to remember forever in our life with this all we can see. You can see that the poet himself is a wanderer roaming from one subject to subject and experience to another. So here when you look at that the first and second visit of Wordsworth of that rivers river why, then he has been trying to shift, trying to wander here and there to recollect his past and the present to have that kind of concerns of the God, peace, and reminiscences in his poetry. So with this, I think you can understand that how Wordsworth had the touch of the French Revolution, to have the liberty, freedom of expression, fraternity, and equality, and then the other side to have that kind of peace in the lap of the nature. So with this, I think you can go through the poem and you can understand crystal clearly that how Wordsworth is known as a pantheist and who believes the God is the nature representation of is whatever the peace in lap of the nature. So here with this I can conclude that the poem is with this kind of background of the personal and which are making sense of his subject of childhood and memories, and then the nature, how it influenced him to write this poem. So this is what you can understand what was concerns of the romantic age. Now we'll come to the next intimations of immortality by William Wordsworth. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So we'll come to the second poem by the same poet. Can anyone of you read page number 77?
Introduction to Romanticism, no, sir?
Yeah.
Romanticism is a term used to describe the artistic and intellectual movement produced in Europe during the late 18th and 19th centuries. In literature, Romanticism appeared in the countries England, Germany, and later in France, Italy, and Spain. The most important Romantic English poets are Lord Byron, Shelley, Keats, William Blake, and William Wordsworth. Romanticism emphasizes on emotions. The relationship between nature and a human life is explored. Importance of the personal experiences is stressed upon, and a desire to understand the human mind in expressed strongly. The themes can be related to mythology, fantasy, gothic, and supernatural elements. Social and political ideals are expressed freely. Love is one of the most important values of the romantic poets.
Yeah.
Also,
So
the
we
imitation.
have yeah. So we
Shall I
have
read,
seen
sir?
that the background. Yeah. Please start. Reading.
Okay. On to the imitation of the immorality. A poem that is written for a specific purpose, such as an occasion or about a particular subject, is considered an ode. In many cases, they are written either to praise or pay the tribute to the subject of the poem. The poem, whose full title is Ode Imitations of the Immorality from the Recollection of the Childhood, makes explicit Wordsworth belief that life on the earth is a dim shadow of a earlier, purer existence. He uses a lot of imagination to get his idea to the reader. He wants us to be able to see what he sees and feels what he feels. In dim, it is dimly recalled in the childhood and then forgotten in the process of growing up. It was partly composed in 1803 and partly in 1806. This ode, this ode is the result of the spiritual crisis that the poet was facing around the year 1802. The nature only source of his poetic inspiration seemed to lose its magic for him. In the ode, he carries with a extinguished heart. Whither is fled the visionary gleam? Where is it now? The glory and the dream. It is the structure of the poem. It is unique in his work and written in a song cadence with frequent changes in rhyme, scheme, and rhythm, written in the 11 odd stanzas with the variable rhyme schemes. So, shall I continue? Hello.
Just a minute. So here
Okay.
we have seen that the background of the romanticism and the poets, and then how it has been recurring with this kind of thematic concerns of mythology, fantasy, gothic, and supernatural elements. And even you can see, apart from all these, the social and political ideals are expressed freely. So here the age is known as age of reason and freedom of expression and individuality. And here it has been making sense of the background of all these multiple aspects, and at the same time that French Revolution and the way how all these romantic poets had a touch of the multiple aspects of the contemporary age. So here the poem is making sense of life on earth is a dim shadow of an earlier pure existence. He uses the imagination, and he shows that the way how his childhood memories are all with this kind of aspects of his life, and how he had this kind of ode is a result of a spiritual crisis that the poet was facing around the year 1802. So here the poem is making sense of the spiritual crisis, and then you look at that how this poem is with this kind of background of identity crisis as well as spiritual crisis. So when you look at the summary of the poem, the poet does not find the divine glory in nature that he has had in his childhood, and he grieves for it. So as and when if you look at the saying that child is the father of man, in our childhood we feel that without any kind of second thought or corrupt nature, that to see what is what, whether it is nature or socio-political aspects. And then as and when you grow, you may see that to analyze and to judge what is the object. So here he never and ever had that kind of whatever the compromise with anything. He always tries to express whatever he wishes to express. So here, when he failed that divine glory in nature, then he wants to see that how he will get that. The meadow, the grove, the stream, the earth, and every object of his childhood had shown him heavenly light. So here in childhood he was with that kind of dreamlike freshness and glory which is no more seen now. So as and when passing through the panorama of his life and childhood days, he has been trying to look at that how nature is the source of the human peace as well as happiness. And when he looked at the nature in childhood days, is not at all remained as it is in his youth. So here he he wishes to explore that how he failed to see in his youth the beauty of the nature as he had the touch of his childhood days. So here the splendor formerly seen is found nowhere in any object of nature. So the stanza is making sense that the reminiscences of his own, and then come to the second stanza. Beauty is seen everywhere in nature. The rainbow appears again and again. The rose is still lovely. The moon shines brightly in the cloudless sky. The waters of the lakes are beautiful and wonderful. And look at the bright rays of the nature of the sun are still glorious, but the poet feels a kind of emptiness everywhere. He finds that the glory has passed away from the nature. So here, when you look at that, the childhood days and the youth, with this kind of gap, and then he had tried to look at that, that emptiness, no matter of the fresh and bright and the sun and that whatever the wonderful nature, but here he had looked at that nature, this kind of emptiness in second stanza 2, and stanza 3 is the representation of that how poet grieved. His mind is totally occupied with the melancholic feelings because of whatever the emptiness everywhere. And then he looked at birds singing joyously, and young lambs are leaping about. He feels recovered. He does not like to spoil the merry season with his grief. So here you will see that how he wishes to see the beauty of the nature, as he was in childhood days, and then it was empty, everywhere in his youth. So here, that the poet exhorts the shepherd boy to shout around so that he may enjoy his blissful mood. So here in third stanza, he looked at this kind of grief as well as joy, and then he wants to console him. The fourth stanza is explains there is an intercommunication in the objects of nature. He feels envious of the objects of nature who seem to be blissful while he himself is sad. So here, when you look at, he addresses nature's creatures and says that his heart participates in their joyous festival. He says that it is wrong to feel sad on such a beautiful morning. Nevertheless, a tree and a field that he looks upon make him think of something that is gone and found nowhere. Here you look at how he asks what has happened to the visionary dream, where is it now, the glory and the dream. So here he questions in the stanza 4 that whatever the emptiness made him to have that kind of sadness and grief, as well as that emptiness made him to say that the question of that glory and the dream, where are they, like that. Here the poet had tried to say that subjective grief as well as whatever his concerns towards the objects of nature. And in fifth stanza that he says, heaven lies but us in our infancy. Heavenly glory lingers about us in fancy. So here we have that kind of whatever the glory of the past in our childhood days, and whenever you began impair heavenly visions. So like that, here you see the way how that emptiness is represented in the stanza 2 and 5, that it has gone, disappeared like anything, and that the glory of the childhood days of the nature is no more. So here, the way how has been recollecting his childhood days, and then coming to the youth, and then coming to the stanza 6, nature is like nurse, and the earth does it best that she can do for the child. So here we had tried to look at how heaven like nature always with the childhood days without any corruption. In stanza 7, he vividly describes the picture of a playing child he perhaps keeps in his mind college 6-year-old child, partly college. He refers to the child indulging in playing with toys, which are a source of delight to him. The father looks at his child with loving care, while his mother kisses him with love. So here you see that how Wordsworth has been representing this kind of whatever the reminiscences of the past, and the subject of the childhood days and the memories of that kind, to look at how this ode to intimations of the poem is making sense of all these. Then stanza 8, he's saying the child is the best philosopher and retains the divine glory. So as I told you, that child is the father of man. So here he says, why with such earnest pains dost thou provoke the years to bring the inevitable yoke thus blindly with thy blessedness at strife. So here, when you look at, his soul will have to carry the load of worries and anxieties of the world. He will be burdened with earthly cares heavily. So here you look at the way how he wants to, draw from that kind of burdens of earthly, whatever the concerns. So the ninth stanza is that whatever the poet says, that our human nature has memories and the recollections of the short heaven. So here you will see that the past is with this kind of glory of the nature, and then the divinity still continues to be within us. This thought makes us feel grateful to God. So here he is looking at the nature and God and blessings enjoyed during the childhood days. So childhood days, he always he tries to emphasize that they are in the lap of the nature, uncorrupted. They are with the kind of budding hopes and aspirations. The poet grateful for the emotions which he has had in childhood days. So like that, here you can see that childhood days in a moment, how he had recollected. And in stanza 10, Wordsworth wants the birds to sing joyously, and then he is looking at his childhood times forever in his memory. And then he also wishes to have faith in soothing and comforting thoughts that arise out of human sufferings. So all these are all into the 10th stanza. And the 11th stanza, he has been trying to address the fountains, meadows, hill and groves, and assures that his love for nature will never stop to exist. In his heart, he has won the influence of nature, and he still loves the brooks, and even more than he did in his childhood. So here, the way how he had that kind of close attachment with the nature, with this kind of whatever his concerns, and he always tries to be with that beauty of the nature. So here, the innocent brightness of the dawn, he still he loves. His love for nature has turned more philosophic, sober ideas are filled in his heart. So like that, here he feels thankful to the human heart. The poet is now full of these thoughts, expressions that even in the most ordinary flower builds in him the thoughts which are too deep for the hearers to express them in the final stanza. So here Wordsworth claims that he will forever be in love with nature and all its beauty, and he will in love with it until he dies. So here, when you look at the poem, his concerns towards the love of nature, and Wordsworth always tries to be with the nature, that how he has that kind of influence of the nature, and then how he wants to show that kind of right path to have that kind of humanity and love till the end of his life. So here, when you look at all these, then the poet has been trying to remind that the childhood memories and the attachment with the nature, and as and when he grows, he looks at the nature with the same concern, no matter of his worries, burdens of his whatever the youth as well as the earth. So like that, here he shows that the uncorrupted nature of the childhood days will be forever in his life, and to glorify the beauty of the nature as well as the memories. So when you look at all these, then you can understand how Wordsworth's poem are all from this kind of background. So now we'll move to the another poem, that is the Prelude. Hello, hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, is it audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now we look at the third one is the Prelude. Anyone of you read the Prelude, mythical work of Watch? Introduction to the poem. Hello, hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Please read page number 87.
Wordsworth, The Prelude. One of the best approaches to the philosophy of nature through Wordsworth's poem is offered by the prelude. Every reading of the poem gives the reader a new meaning. The poem was like an anti-castle through which the reader might gain a way to his inner self to possess excess joy and pleasure. The poem begins in his childhood and continues till 1798. The writer constantly tells that he needs to honor Coleridge and create an introduction to the recluse. The poem was in fact finished in 1805 but had been constantly revised till it was posthumously published in 1850. The original draft was resurrected and first published in 1926. A comparison of it with the 1850 final draft version shows a lot of changes that the work underwent. 1805 draft was fresher and more vigorously written. A student who reads a poem written in 1805 finds it more accessible for the purpose of understanding it. Even critics consider the version written in 1805 when citing the original lines from the poem.
Yeah. So here, you look at the way the poetic genius and the creativity begins in his childhood and continues till 1798. So when you look at that, how Wordsworth had that kind of uniqueness as well as unmatched, uncomparable willpower to understand that poem is making sense of all these aspects of his childhood memories. So when you look at all these, then you can understand how the poet has been with this kind of childhood memories, which are recollected from his childhood days till the end of life. So like that, here you can see that the poem is with this kind of three consecutive sections. There you can see that how literal and fanciful explanation of his childhood and youthful days. So he always tries to look at his childhood days as well as that uncorrupted spirit of the childhood days. And then you can see that the book 8 is kind of reprised book. And 9 and 11 are more to it and narrative. Book 12 and 13 are mostly metaphysical, devoted to philosophy of what, ending up with a short summary. The lines are simple and graceful. The prelude was very successful, and there was nothing left to deal with recluse. So here, the prelude describes the poet's experiences of growing up as a man and as a poet. Fullness. So here you look at how poet had the touch of his childhood days, and as and when he is looking at as a poet with this kind of fullness, closeness, and laborious anxiety that is unique in English literature. So here, when you look at all these, then you can see how the poet has been emerging from this kind of background to write the poetry with this kind of close attachment with the beauty of the nature. So here, when you look at all these, then you can understand how Wordsworth has been playing a unique role in English literature, and all the whatever his concerns are all with this kind of beauty of the nature. In stages in conception of nature. First stage, the prelude was an outcome of a process from childhood to adulthood. And this first stage, nature was the background to the poet's childish moods. Wordsworth himself says. So here, as and when we look at his all the poems are all from this kind of childhood memories and the subjects. As well as you can see that the first stage was secondary to my own pursuits and animal activities and all the trivial pleasures. So here he spent a good amount of time in the lap of nature. And you look at the childhood activities like bathing in water, streams, laying traps for birds, climbing trees for robbing one mother's birds of their young ones from their nests, gathering May blossoms, hunting, hare, boating, and skating, and so on. Wordsworth always felt that there is always the presence of something not be found directly. So here you can see that the following I heard among the solitary hills, low breathing coming after me, and sounds of undistinguishable motion, steps almost as silent as the turf they trod. So when you look at the way how is whatever the concerns and mixed memories are all he has been trying to describe in each and every memory with this kind of unforgettable subjects as well as memories. So like that here you can see how his first stage.
Sir, you are not audible, sir.
Sir, are we supposed to read?
Sir, we are not able to hear you, sir.
It's showing that sir left.
Hello, sir. Is class going on?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it got cut down, no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, now we'll come back to again, prelude. So we have seen that, childhood to adult, how, this prelude was an outcome of a process from childhood to adulthood. And then you have seen that how poets childhood childish sports and how he had that kind of subjects of childhood memories, and in the second stage developed a strong linking for the beauty of nature, that poets love for nature is devoid of thought, and then nature inspired him a lot. He used to sit all alone in his soul spread out with the feelings of serenity. And in third stage, you can see that how poets communication with nature. So he has seen not only nature's beauty surface, he has seen that language of the nature, how it is peaceful, how it is with this kind of happiness. And if you look at Rabindranath Tagore's Subha, in that short story he had tried to say that nature too has that kind of abundance power to influence the human beings with its peace, silence, and that could be any kind of murmuring and all. So here when you look at he sees nature with his eye of soul, and not by the physical eye. So here you will see that the greatness of the poet, how he wants to know that inner consciousness of his soul with that kind of nature, spirituality, as well as that kind of whatever the functions of spiritual and physical. So here the way how this prelude is the development of is whatever the concerns from the childhood days to the adulthood, and here he wants to be free from this kind of sufferings, as well as whatever other aspects of the sorrow and all. So like that he wants to show the way to understand the God in nature and nature in God, so that one can understand how this poem is with this kind of background. I heard among the salty hills, low breathing coming after me, and sounds of undistinguishable motion steps, almost as silent as the turf they trod. So like that, all these, you can understand that the prelude is with this kind of growth of a poet's mind, and it is more, the prelude is not an autobiographical poem of Wordsworth, then it is, with this kind of collections of poets' early love for nature and various formative influences. So like that, here you can see that how, he has that kind of touch of the nature as it is, and he says that nature as a teacher. And here the poem is has been reminding that the way how it is with this kind of pleasant, and the poet has returned to his favorite lake district. So when you look at all these, then you can understand how the beauty of the nature, and spirituality and memories and the subject concerns of his own shows that the way how one can understand all these into these poetic genius and the creativity of Wordsworth through the
Sir, you are not audible, sir.
Sir, you're not to hear you, sir. Sir, maybe left, I think so.
hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Again, it was disconnected. Okay, now, yeah. So here, with this, we can conclude that prelude with this kind of whatever the background of his childhood memories and subjective concerns, as well as the way how he has been growing with that kind of uncorrupted mind of the childhood days, playing with water, and then how he had recollected all these. Yeah. So when you look at all these, then you can understand how childhood memories of his poetic genius and the creativity generates the idea of the adulthood, how it with this kind of concerns of the childhood. So here one can understand how the poets, as I said, child is the father of man. As and when we grow, we should have to continue our childhood memories with this kind of beauty of the nature, and the way how we can see that nature is as a god, and god is there in nature, and how the human beings should have that kind of peace and happiness with the beauty of the nature, to know how we can have that kind of whatever the humanity and the concerns of the peace and the spirituality in the lap of the nature. So here the poet had tried to bring to the notice of the reader that all these aspects of these the poetic genius and the creativity is with this kind of all the whatever the affects the funnel effect. The mind runs with tons of thoughts wavering, yet he tries to put them straight. Nature brings him peace and comfort. He had been waiting for happiness, which he got from the nature. So here, when you look at the way how he wants to bring to the notice of the reader that uncorrupted nature, as well as childhood days are all from this kind of whatever the memories which are layers which provide us all these whatever the aspects of the spirituality, and how we can share the power of nature in saving a human soul. And he shows that the way
The voice is not audible, sir.
yeah. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Hello.
yes, sir.
Yeah, because of technical glitch now and then has been disconnected. And now we'll see that the prelude with this kind of conclusion, that how the poetic genius and creativity shows the right path towards the peace and happiness, and then how nature is in God and God is there in nature. And the poet too had that kind of sweet memories and reminiscences of his childhood days. He never and ever drops that childhood memories, which are chronologically with this kind of adulthood, so that he has been trying to recollect his memories to understand that the beauty of the nature and the power of spirituality and God are all into this kind of nature, as well as with this kind of concerns of the God. So here the poet has been trying to remind us that the way how God is in nature and nature is in God, with this kind of poetic genius and creativity, the poets of the romantic age have been trying to remind us the philosophy of this kind of whatever the pantheism, and God is a true nature. And when you look at all these, then you can see that how the poets of the romantic age have been reminding the way to know what is liberty and equality and fraternity, and that how they differ with the other age poets. And then here you can understand Wordsworth has been trying to remind that the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. So when you look at all these, then you can understand how this 19th century is making sense of its existential reality, no matter of any kind of socio-political cultural aspects. One should have that kind of age of reason till the end of life. So here the poet has been trying to remind that how his childhood memories are growing like anything to know what is the reality and beauty and spirituality and uncorrupted nature of his childhood days, which are with this kind of layers of memories and thought-provoking ideas, and explores that how one should have this kind of beauty of the nature, not physically. It should be with the inner consciousness, and it should be with that kind of spirituality. So here each and every line of the poem shows that the way how it is with this kind of stand of all these explorations through these kind of whatever the concerns of the nature, one may remain that part of nature.
నువ్వు లేకుంటే ఇస్తారే చేసుకున్న బిడ్డ చేసుకున్నా లేకుండా కదా లేదు కదా నాకు కూడా ఇక ఆలస్యం అవుతుంది కదా బిడ్డ పడుకో. సరే ఓకేనా.
Yamuna, can you please mute your audio, please?